genetics. We do believe in looking at our family history that my deafness was prelingual, which means it's in my DNA. We have family members within our family tree who also have a similar loss. Naturally, for my parents, we come from Minnesota. For those of you who may not be from the state of Minnesota, yes, we do have an accent, and we do like to put emphasis on the O in our state. I was born and raised there, and with very limited access to accommodations for a child with hearing loss. The perspective of the resources provided to my family was that my ability to succeed in this society was contingent on my ability to speak. So I went through 10 years of aggressive military speech therapy. It was not until the age of 15 when I dropped out of high school due to extreme frustrations and felt that academically I was not succeeding. So it took a representative from a vocational rehabilitation who changed the course of my life. I went to the Minnesota Academy for the Deaf, and there I learned American Sign Language. I also learned at that time that my identity was not defined by my loss, that anything I set myself to do was within my realm of ability. And of course, my passion is for advocacy and policy. So with that being said, what I'd like to do today is give an overview on TDI. I understand from Russ that you guys had visibility to the former CEO. I think it was about 3 years ago, who gave an introduction to our organization. There has been some shifts in our mission and our strategy, so we'll cover that with you today. I'm also going to take some time to talk about the most powerful hot topic, and that's artificial intelligence. I will touch on that briefly in the closing of our presentation. My goal and my presentation style, I prefer more interactive. I spend less time speaking and more time interacting. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen. So it's going to populate the whole screen. And if everybody's ready, I will go ahead and do that. Are we all ready?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go ahead and share. Alrighty. I'm going to turn down the gallery video so I can follow through. Okay. And I'm going to also be sensitive to following the captions to make sure that we've captured everything. And I thank you in advance for bearing with me as I walk through my slide. Okay, I'm having trouble getting this to go to the next slide. Okay, so TDI, our mission is to foster accessibility, equity, and inclusion in information and communication technology for deaf, deaf-blind, deaf-disabled, hard of hearing, and late deafened people through public policy, advocacy, consumer education, and collaborative industry and government partnerships. I do want to take a moment for those of you who may not be familiar. What is information and communication technology? I will touch on that in the next few slides. But before I do that, I want to really give credit to our success as TDI is not because of silos. It's because we collaborate with several consumer organizations, including HLAA. That's why it was such a pleasure to see Lisa Hamlin on this call this morning. We miss you, Lisa. With that being said, our progress and efforts are done through these various consumer organizations. I'm not going to read them all line by line, but I did want to take a moment to give a big hand wave to Hearing Loss Association of Americans for their tremendous collaboration and support on a number of fronts. And we'll talk about that shortly. TDI has transitioned to a new legal name as of spring 2023. If you look at the spelling, and the reason I've taken a moment to share that is because oftentimes our new name is spelled separately. It's actually together. TDI for access. We were formerly known as Telecommunications for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I will explain a little bit more on the change behind the legal name. We are no longer incorporated in the state of Maryland. We have transitioned to Wilmington, Delaware for a number of reasons. However, our presence is still strong in the DMV area. We are 100% remote. We no longer have a brick and mortar. We wisely invest the monies that would go into rentals into our mission. In addition to our mission, we have added the older Americans and military veterans, and that's been a result of a lot of inquiries and requests for support to partner with those entities. Because again, our core focus is on policy specific to technology. We collaborate with other organizations that bring other aspects, whether it's litigation, education, lobbying, and et cetera. So our belief is to not duplicate efforts, but to build on one another's strengths. And for TDI, since 1968, our core niche has been known and identified for our work in the policy sector. We are expanding in that area to get more involved in technology. In addition to that, we also have two new publications, the TDI Dispatch. When you think about the term dispatch, notice that things is 911, but 911 is dispatch because there's a lot of emergency situations and et cetera. We leverage that term dispatch to bring updates in our monthly publications, whether that's in the federal space, state, education, anything that has impact to our communities. We also have a biannual publication that gives a preview of the first 6 months in July and the remaining 6 months in December. I encourage you, if you are not a member of TDI, and when I say member, meaning subscribe, one of the changes we made is we no longer have membership-based dues. Instead, we welcome any and everyone to join our organization and follow through on our subscription. Now, the key successes of TDI, we're very involved in the FCC filings and regulations. So some of the highlights, again, through collaboration with other consumer organizations, is emergency communications, advocating for improvements in 911, 988, and WEA, wireless emergency alerts. Hearing aid compatibility was a huge victory, and I give credit, tremendous credit to the work by HLAA in this spectrum. Very exciting. Of course, I can personally identify with that, being a hearing aid user. And as always, we're continuously looking for ways to enhance that experience for all our consumers. Media accessibility has become a hot topic, especially with strengthening captioning, audio descriptions, and accessibility for streaming platforms. Has also been a real hot topic in this industry, especially with the era of digital taking over the processing of how we receive information today. And of course, last but not least, which I will touch on because this is an area that TDI is heavily involved in, and that is the artificial intelligence and emerging tech. So I'll elaborate a little bit more about that and its impact, specifically on captions and other emerging tech accessibility. Excuse me. What are we focusing on today? Older Americans Act, which, especially with the statistics of today's demographics, as studies have shown, by 2035, the number of older adults, 65 and older, will far outweigh the number of children. But statistics show that as we become more wise, I always use that term rather than aging, because we do become more wise, also comes with implications of some form of disability, whether it's cognitive, mobile, sensory, etc. So Older Americans is currently in an extension on hold with our Congress, but we are working very closely with the stakeholders to ensure that the information in the OAA protects our community of people with disabilities, advocating for increased funding and stronger provisions for accessibility, addressing the policy challenges that have surfaced in light of our new administration, especially with mitigating gaps. As we all have seen, DEI has become a hot topic in the last couple of weeks, and what impact that will have on the services provided, whether it's in education, employment, technology, and et cetera. So TDI is keeping a very close eye on that. We also are collaborating with other consumer organizations to pave the way on the messaging and our goal and how we want to ensure that we do not leave anyone behind. And of course, always trying to the best of our ability, which can be challenging to do in this industry with technology evolving, is to stay proactive and engaged. Now, I want to touch on artificial intelligence. But before I do, I would like to get a feel from this group, looking at the chat, how many of you feel comfortable and have a full understanding of AI? So just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Watching the chat. Okay, any others? Comfortable with AI, not comfortable with AI. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, the first thing is the core of our mission is really looking at how we can break the boundaries that have been imposed by AI. AI is clearly breaking barriers for both the aging population and the disabled community, and could simplify tasks, enhance daily living, and create new opportunities for connection and independence. At the same time, because of AI's origination, which just for everyone, AI has been here since the 1950s and is not new. And it is here today. It exists within our homes. Ringers are a good example of that. Our remote controls and how they connect with our teenies. AI is everywhere. Is AI a bad thing? It depends on who you ask. For me, I'm very excited about AI. At the same time, I do have some reservations simply because it is so important that as an organization that we are involved at the table on any implications of AI and its involvement and influence in shaping technology, whether it's once again in the different facets of life, healthcare, education, employment, policy, and et cetera. One key core area that I'm very involved with is a member of COSEC. What that is Coalition for Sign Language Equity in Technology. And what that means is we're seeing a spike in a number of vendors that are vested in replacing American Sign Language with AI. Now, AI is being used for avatars with ASL. However, ASL as a language, there are so many biases in AI because it is missing what we call data sets that are essential to feeding into AI to ensure that the cultural and grammatical, visual, conceptual rules are factored into AI. So we are really putting a lot of heavy focus on working closely with some of the bar associations on states that are looking into the AI impact, as well as the U.S. Access Board. I had the pleasure of presenting to them in collaboration with my colleague, Jeff Shaw, on the findings that we had in our observations and research on AI's implications on American Sign Language. I can provide a link to that site, which in and of itself is a foundation that we believe can have some influence in the general realm, including spoken language. So establishing standards to ensure ethical use of AI. Now, obviously, we want to establish policies that protect privacy, prevent biases, and ensure accessibility for all individuals, especially for vulnerable populations such as older Americans in the disability community. Now, this clearly requires the engagement and collaboration of not only consumer organizations, but those who are behind the design. Governments and industries must work together to ensure that we create a comprehensive framework that ensures that AI technologies are safe, inclusive, and beneficial to all. Now, empowering lives, that's where our core focus is, obviously on policy and advocacy. With the rapid technological advances that are happening in the past decade, technology has dramatically reshaped access to information and communication. We've seen that with hearing aids, connections with Bluetooth. Elderly individuals, especially those with a hearing loss or progressive loss, and oftentimes combined with vision impairments, do face significant barriers to technological benefits. So the individuals at the tables who are making these decisions on the development of the design, it is imperative that they also include experts who come from these various disability groups in the shaping of the data segments used to influence artificial intelligence. There obviously is need for more inclusion with OAA, and I mentioned this earlier, that is really a top priority for TDI in our efforts, working with other organizations, especially with AARP and Deaf Seniors of America, HLAA, is how do we ensure that the reintroduction of OAA does bring tremendous support for individuals with disabilities. At this present time, there's controversy that the OAA only represents people with mobile disabilities. So there's been a lot of debate and dialogue on the language of the OAA not representing the general markets of people with disabilities. So while we support mobile disabilities, we know that based on statistics, that the primary disability that often comes with aging is, in addition to mobile, is also sensory, which means vision and hearing. So with that being said, we're really pushing to ensure that that is factored into the Older Americans Act. And again, with technology evolving rapidly, bridging the digital divide to ensure equal access for older adults is so crucial. 1 second. Part of our work with the Empowering Lives is inclusive communication strategies. We're working on effective telehealth for all the disability groups, but primarily the core focus that we're seeing a lot of challenges with telehealth being available, whether it's with captions for people with hearing loss or whether it's with interpreters. A lot of the telehealth platforms are only designed for two-person engagement. We're really pushing for platforms to encompass three-person engagement. So if you have a physician or a nurse working with someone who is deaf and relies on ASL, they have the ability to bring on a third party. Similarly, the option to have captions presented during those conversations as well. So we have a lot of work to do in that mainstream. Technological adaptations, too, is to ensure that they are flexible and equipped with high-quality broadband to support uninterrupted communication during medical appointments. The Affordability and Connectivity Program that made possible for millions of people to have access to high speed has had an impact on this economically challenged market. So that's one of the key components that we are evaluating with the absence of ACP. What does that mean? How do we make high broadband available to our population that are economically challenged, especially with the high percentage of statistics in employment and underrepresentation of employment? So I do want to add, and I'm going to open to Q&A, but one thing I want to add is this is a very brief presentation. Most of my presentations are approximately 2 hours long because there's so much in-depth information to share, not only in OAA technology changes, but also with artificial intelligence. So what I would like to do, take a pause, give you a moment and open the floor to questions, and I'll pull up the chat. Any questions?
Anne Marie, I suggest that, probably the easiest way to organize, people to ask your questions, ask people, who have questions to raise your hand. To raise your hand, go to reactions at the bottom, or yeah, that's right. And there it will tell you how to raise your hand, and we can see whose hands raised and call on one person at a time, and you can explain, what questions you may have.
Sounds
So
good.
if that works for everyone, why don't we plan on doing that?
We could start with Lisa Hamlin. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Anne Marie. It's so nice to see you here today. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. But I did actually have a question. The last part that you were talking about was telemedicine. Can you tell me if you're working on specific issues related to telemedicine? Are you looking in general? How are you working on the telehealth issues?
Waiting for the caption to come up 1 second. I think I saw 2 questions. Are you asking about the telehealth and telemedicine? Okay. And can you elaborate on your question on that, Lisa? The caption didn't pick it up fully on my end.
Okay, so what I said, I may have misspoken. That's really possible. I meant telehealth in general. Any kind of video communication with patients between a provider and a patient.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, let me read it. I had to expand it. So it says here on the caption, any video communication with patients between provider and a patient. So are you asking if that currently exists?
Now, what I'm asking is whether TDI, how is TDI working on issues surrounding telehealth? So are you working on specific ways to ensure telehealth is provided to people who have a hearing loss, deaf or hard of hearing? Are there specific things you're doing?
Right. We are working with Health and Human Services, who have as part of their initiative to ensure that as part of the, especially in light of all that is happening right now with this administration, their priorities and making sure that as part of the institution that they are incorporating safeguards to ensure that these are accessible to our patients. Now, as you know, Lisa, as well as I do, this market is so vast. There's so many in the health and industry. And just recently, Communication Service for the Deaf received a grant last fall that will be working on this arena. And our chair of the TDI board, Jan Withers, is part of that panel and that consortium group. They actually are starting this month. So I'm really excited to learn more about their influence and impact on the telehealth. So while that is an excellent question, I don't have all the details on what that will look like. I just know that our community is greatly concerned about how we are going to drive the importance with all that is happening, especially with the executive orders that we have seen in the past couple of weeks. What influence is that going to have in shaping, especially some of the departments that are influential in this space? So basically, the way that I describe it is that we will be a repeated annoyance, a repeated, um, uh, we'll be at the forefront. So yes, I mean, yeah, and just, yeah. So that is to be defined. And I'm really excited about this grant that is, and also too, Gallaudet is very involved in the telehealth space. They are working closely with some of the key individuals, including TDI. And again, that's now possibly at risk with the federal funding. So that's been put on hold. So excellent question. A good time to ask me would be probably in about a month or so, and we have a little bit more visibility into what is going to happen in this industry. And it's not only just telehealth, it's also other mainstreams as well.
Sure. Let me just ask also, I would love to get in contact with you. So, and I'm thinking maybe other people have questions for you. Could you put your email in the chat at some point so that people could contact you if they would like some information?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Russ?
Yes. I was just looking and seeing who had their hands up, and I see I do, but I'm not sure anybody else does now. The question that I had, for you relates to Orocast, which strikes me as it will be, when it's rolled out, having a tremendous impact on accessibility, communications accessibility, particularly in large settings. But I was wondering, whether you had any thoughts on that, whether you were involved in that. But I guess sometimes its promise, the time frame, any challenges, and whether or not, you and TDI for Access are involved and have any insights, on that, on the rollout of Orocast.
Okay, so Russ, I want to make sure your question is captured because the word was spelled as AURACAST. So I'm assuming you mean broadcast.
I think it's AUROCAST, but frankly, I'm not sure I remember the last time I saw it written out. But basically, we're talking about, low energy Bluetooth and the capacity to use it, and I'm thinking primarily in large group settings. Something that may be, including auditoriums, airports, God only knows, it's an infinite number of possibilities. I know it's going to take a while to roll out. I know it's very promising because it's a lot cheaper than rolling out induction hearing loops. But it's going to take a while, and I'm just wondering, whether you had any thoughts, as I say, about its promise, the time frame for rolling it out, any challenges, in that, and whatever involvement you may have.
Yeah, so you're talking about audio loops. You're talking about access to environments with, so I'm seeing Lisa shaking her head. So does this mean the captions is not capturing it correctly?
No, the captioner is called Oracast, and the captioner has it right, AURACAST. It's a new Bluetooth technology that allows large area.
Right.
It's like broadcast Bluetooth is essentially what it is. So the question is getting receivers that work with it, which could be in a hearing aid or could be in a headset or earbuds, and getting it placed. So Russ is kind of looking for what, I don't know if TDI is involved with information on the rollout of Bluetooth Auracast, and what you know about it and how it's working or not.
Right. With full transparency, TDI has not been heavily involved in that aspect. We've actually relied on HLA in their engagement in that industry. You know, we all divide and conquer. And HLA has done a phenomenal job when it comes to hearing aid compatibility and pushing for Bluetooth interface. So with full transparency, I couldn't honestly answer that question, Russ. We are aware of it. We keep in the loop just through our collaboration with the consumer organizations who are focused on that, as well as industry tech. I mean, Apple's very involved with that, and some of the other industries. We have a very close relationship with them. You know, they released the earbuds as an option for hearing aids, you know, reached out to me to trial that. You know, I honestly, full transparency, I have not trialed it. I've just been trying to get through the end of the year with all that's been happening. And I'm curious to know from this group if anybody has tried it. That's kind of off the subject, but back to the question, Russ, is an excellent one. I wouldn't have the availability of providing more details on that like HLAA would. Lisa, I even wonder if you may have information on that.
So some of the people, if people here went to the last HLA convention, we did have an opportunity to try out Auracast. And I did, and it's fabulous. It works really well, has a very long range. I liked it a lot. And that was only using a prototype. So once it's embedded in hearing aids, then I think it has a lot of potential to be one of the best accommodations for us as well as for anybody else. You don't have to be hard of hearing to use it. So Russ, maybe this is a question. So next month we're having Neil Snyder, who is the Director of Public Policy now, come in, and maybe he will answer some questions, or probably will need Bluetooth, because I don't know where they are with it. Rolling out will take some time, and it's actually been a year since I retired, so I don't know where they are now.
Well, I think it's still probably a couple of years away, but it has such tremendous promise that keep hoping that it'll be accelerated. Okay, Ken, you had your hand up.
Yes. I just want to say thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for presenting today and all the great work that TDI does and has been doing. I've been a fan for quite a few years, and from a fellow Minnesotan. I also grew up in Minnesota, so I am so glad that one of us is heading TDI now. But my question is simple. Things I've been very interested in have already been covered. Telehealth and Auracast. But when is your next conference, and is it going to be in person?
Excellent question. We are actually targeting this summer. We have a large scale event taking place called HLAA Ability. One of the things I encourage you all to do, if you have not, is to register on our line to subscribe to our newsletter. We will be bringing updates. It's very easy. You just go to tdiforaccess.org and you can subscribe to our newsletter, or you can email me at amkillian@tdiforaccess.org. But we are collaborating with an organization called HLAA Ability Entertainment. The 35th ADA anniversary is this summer. So as part of that celebration, we are bringing a mix of a summit, expo, and entertainment of individuals with various disabilities. So, for example, Josh Blue, comedian, ASAP, the Armed Services Arts Partners here in DC. Their signature trademark is comedy, veterans with disabilities. Latching, Mandy Harvey, who you guys may identify with, she had a hearing loss later in life and she won America's Got Talent. So we are collaborating and we'll be sending out information on the event, and I could send the link to Russ to share with your distro to make sure you have advanced visibility to our upcoming event.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
There's a question in the chat. Do you want me to read it for you?
Let me see. Yeah, go ahead and read it, Lisa.
The question is from Alfred. He asks, can you describe how closed caption phones are evolving in light of AI?
Yes, yes. The term used of AI's influence is called automated speech recognition. That's one. The other aspect of AI's influence, which has been a real hot topic, not only with the FCC, but the US Access Board, is the influence of using automated speech recognition in lieu of a human captioner. Now, there is a diverse reaction to that for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, in fact, that's one of the discussions that we are heavily involved in with MITRE. MITRE is an organization contracted by the Federal Communications Commission to establish standards on captions. It has been, with full transparency, a long, involving process. And you see Lisa smiling, maybe chuckling a little bit. And Lisa, just so you know, not much has changed since you retired, other than we're continuing to have these dialogues. Now, we are making progress, and now we have a new team of members involved in the MITRE discussions, the providers, and how we are going to establish those standards with AI's influence on captions. There are so many intricacies that involved in captions. You know, talking about accents, yeah, even such a thing as deaf accents. I mean, I have what's called a deaf access, even though I have laryngitis, people who represent vulnerable communities. What impact does that have? Also, just the tone of cultural aspects that go into captioning. So, that being said, that is the influence that we are seeing, is that vendors and companies are migrating more to ASR than they are bringing in the human captioner. And we're really pushing to ensure that the safeguards imposed have a balance of both. Of course, you will find within the industry differential point of views on captions and its implications and value to our community. But if there is anything I could share with this group, that every day when I get up in the morning, get ready to tackle, it's always about, are we protecting our community? Are we ensuring that safeguards are in place? Whether, again, it's through telehealth, education, employment, and the impact of technology's involvement and role. Now, one key thing about AI that's of tremendous concern, again, going back to the population that we talked about earlier with the statistics, we are evolving. We're seeing baby boomers. We're seeing the next generation take up the majority of the population. And with that means additional needs for accessibility and accommodations. Now, not everyone is tech savvy. So how do we position elderly people who are migrating, who don't have that foundation of understanding, who need to have that ability to access? And all of that is generated by AI. So in and of itself, like I mentioned, so hard to cover that in such a short time on this call. But back to that long-winded response to your question and closed caption phones evolving in light of AI, it's already there. Does that answer your question, Alfred? Okay. Ken, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So we've made a lot of progress, I guess, within the last decade or so. FCC, it was friendly, but with the change in the administration, the changes in the FCC and everything else, what is your opinion as far as how our progress is going to move forward?
Okay. That's an excellent question. Thank you so much. Because believe it or not, we just did an analysis on the new administration of the FCC with the new representation of the chair. Believe it or not, if you look at the history of the new chair, which is Chairman Brendan Carr, he has, in general, been very supportive of issues on accessibility. When he joined initially, being brand new, there was one initiative and it was related to hearing aids and volume control that he was not in support of. However, he shifted tremendously and he's been a great advocate. I personally, if there was going to be any new person taken over, despite his engagement with the current administration and Project 2025, I personally, from my perspective and lens, have been pleased with his engagement. So I believe he will continue to be a representative who will listen, who will collaborate. Now, whether or not he makes decisions in our favor, I think if you look at the recent history of what we have accomplished collectively as consumer organizations, even the captioning was a huge win. I don't know if you guys talked about that amongst yourselves, but the captioning and its endorsement was a huge win. And that just recently came out. Did you share that at all with your HLA chapter about the recent FCC filing on that? Okay, that's a big one. The other component too is, again, the involvement of artificial intelligence is on the forefront of their radar. So we're just right now waiting for them to launch their disability advisory committee, which we have been a part of, both HLA and as well as TDI, to see what are going to be their top initiatives for this coming year. So that's my personal opinion. You might talk with someone else in another consumer organization that may have a different feeling on the FCC, but I personally am an optimist. And while there'll be challenges, I am confident that we will continue to see trends evolve that will be in our favor.
Well, that's very, very helpful. And just a quick follow-up. Can you share what the recent FCC decision or announcement was regarding captions?
There have been several announcements recently by the FCC. Do you have access to the FCC who provides called Access Info? They share updates on the FCC. If you don't have that, we can provide it. But a lot of the recent announcements were on 911, 988, WEA, wireless emergency alerts, captions. Probably the most recent would be IVCS, interoperable communication video. It's this right here. What we're doing on this Zoom platform is called IVCS. It means we're interacting through video and ensuring that there's compatibility safeguards in place with captions and availability of interpreters. That would have been the most recent. We are now working on filing a response to the white paper. For those of you who may not be aware, analog is phasing out. Analog means the landline phone, the rotary phone. If any of you still have rotary phones in your home, we do have a population of people that still use analog. They do not use internet IP. So that is phasing out. corporations are looking to phase that out. So what impact does that have on our rural communities who rely heavily on analog, especially for TTYs? So we're just in the process of getting ready to respond to the comments that have been issued by 3 entities. But there is so much happening. Do you have access to that info website, Ken?
I think Lisa Ewan just placed that in chat. So I think we all have access now.
Yes, real-time text as well. And you can subscribe to it. I faithfully read it because I like keeping in touch with everything that's going on with the FCC. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in that space, to subscribe. And it will provide you all the updates on the recent filings. Now, one thing I want to add is that TDI, at least since I started as CEO, we play a very heavy role in leading the drafting of the filings. Just to give a case in point, in 2024 alone, just in pro bono support, just got the invoice from our legal firms that we work closely in supporting our coalition, and it was almost $500,000. Okay, so that is how much filing we do. And that's just 2024 alone. Again, it's not just TDI alone. We handle all the provision and drafting, and then we collaborate with all of the consumer organizations to review and engage their feedback to ensure equal representation across all consumer organizations. So we're very involved with drafting of policies and filings for the FCC on behalf of the coalitions.
Barry, you had a hand up?
Yes, you've mentioned a couple times about new administration, DEI. I'm just wondering if there are specific areas where you're concerned about an attack on inclusion interfering with the efforts you're trying to do.
Well, probably the first and foremost concern is the removal of the written accessibility statement at the White House. That is no longer on the White House. Within 2 hours of the inauguration, that was removed from the website. So that is definitely in the top of our radar, is the impact that that will have. We have seen already the impact of DEI's influence on sustainability of employment. We have a large number of people who have lost their jobs as a result of the DEI on a federal level. And that has led to discussions on what impact that's going to have on funding. So, and I mentioned that briefly in my presentation, but if there's anything that is foremost in the front of our radar, it is that. What impact the DEI's removal is going to have. We're already seeing it in companies who were supportive of the DEIA and now are removing DEIA from their mission statements. And these are companies that have been very involved in the disability community who now may be shifting gears and have been instrumental in sponsoring and hosting and funding a number of conferences, initiatives, and et cetera. So there's a lot that remains to be seen for this coming year in the impact of DEIA.
Other
Any other
questions?
David,
David,
Hi.
excuse me.
What is put a definition down, and what is the definition of language equity?
Language equity. Excellent. Language equity. The definition of language equity is that it is accessible to each and everyone in their language. So in other words, ASL, English, Spanish, all of it is available and accessible to each and every individual in that language.
Oh, okay.
Is what language equity is. So
Oh,
oftentimes, obviously, majority rules. Majority sets the standards. So English obviously is the leading spoken language, right? So one of the challenges that we are having at this present time that we're working with the consumer organizations and filing is ensuring that the White House makes accessible not only captions, but also American Sign Language as a form of language and other languages. So language equity is something that has a huge disparity and is of grave concern amongst different groups who speak various languages to ensure that all information in ICT is accessible. So we had, for example, interpreters available for all of the White House briefings and et cetera. And as a result of the new administration, they no longer will provide interpreters on their screens. There's been controversy that interpreters are a distraction and therefore people should just rely on captions. What they don't understand is that we have a large population of people who rely on American Sign Language who are not fluent in written English. But they associate American Sign Language as being the same as written English. So therefore, why can't deaf people or those with hearing loss who rely on ESL just follow the captions? So we're back to a little bit of having to re-educate once again. So we have done some issuance of filing letters to the White House to please make sure that they give emphasis to language equity and make it accessible to all who reside in the United States so that they are aware of what is happening in the day-to-day activities of the White House and its implications on their executive orders.
Okay, great.
And
answer.
I see as a hand up, is that a holdover or you have a new question?
Now I got a new question. I've been keeping up to date, but how is the deaf community responding to some of the new technology? I read that Sorensen, they bought 2 artificial intelligence companies that are working to produce American Sign Language. How's the deaf community responding to that? And are there any real applications right now that they can use?
Concern, fear, uncertainty, compromising the quality of access, pursuit of AI to make it more or less scalable is the concern on behalf of the community. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, AI in itself has a long ways to go in incorporating all the required data and data segments. They're 2 separate things. Data is one thing where you enter all of the information, and data segments includes then analysis of the information. So the announcement by Sorensen is not an isolated announcement. There's several other entities also that are using and gravitating towards AI as a replacement for human sign language interpreters.
Yeah, I would think that it's almost been a year, 10 years. They've been trying to measure the quality of captions. To be able to measure the quality of artificial intelligence ASL, wow, that'd be quite a challenge.
Now, that's just it. AI is driven by the majority. AI is driven by impact of information that is already out there. One area that has not been a part of AI is individuals with disabilities. That has been a very low priority for AI. So it has a long ways to go to bring all of the required data. So I see what you mean. It's been here since the 1950s, but it's not been a priority action item for the developers of AI because the disability community is still seen as a very small minority group. What they don't realize is we are really gravitating towards becoming part of the majority. And a lot of those developers that are sitting at the table on AI are going to be a part of our community. And that's one of the things that I have said consistently in all my meetings and influencers. When they ask me the question, who does this benefit? My response is always you and me. Oh, well, how would I benefit from it? Well, you will probably find that we're probably the only minority group that you will join one day, sir or ma'am, and show the statistics of that. And it's often resulting in silence. a moment to process that and then realize. So I said, we're really not just here for today. We're here to plan ahead for individuals like you and I to ensure that the technology we are seeing rapidly evolve at such a fast pace will be there to support each and every one of us so that no one is left behind, including you, sir. So a long ways to go, but it's here and it's here to stay.
Other questions? Okay, I don't see any. If not, maybe I'll turn it, back, to Lise and to Rachel, to close up, but not before I say thank you. Thank you very much, Anne Marie. I'm sorry that we caught you on a day when speaking was an effort, I hope you recover quickly.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to meeting with you all. I missed the last one because I had COVID. And then this time I had the flu. And I thought, I am not missing this meeting. I'm going to make it happen. And I apologize for the coughing and the.
Well, apologies are not necessary. Thank you. Least, Rachel, do you have anything to close before we close out?
Yeah, just a couple of words. First of all, again, I want to echo what Russ said so eloquently. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. We really love having you, and particularly because you weren't feeling well. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And I noticed in the chat that nobody has mentioned either an April meeting or stepping forward as a volunteer, although we had Desiree. Thank you, Desiree, for volunteering to come up with to help volunteer. And you should go to that meeting that Rachel will talk about in a second. But please reach out to us. Lisa, would you put our email address back in the chat just so everybody can see it? It'll be in the first thing. Just reach out to the HLA Montgomery County or to DC. You can reach out to Rachel or anybody from DC, or I don't know if you guys have your own mailbox as well, general mailbox, but if so, please put that in the chat too. So reach out to us. Again, I want to stress that if we don't have volunteers, we will not exist as a chapter, Montgomery County or DC. So thank you to the people who are talking to Rachel, and seriously consider people who haven't signed up for Rachel's meeting, seriously consider joining. So Rachel, you want to say any last words about your meeting?
Nothing else to add. I put my email in the chat earlier and the Zoom link to the February 26th meeting. So I hope to see a lot of people there. Thank you.
Well, once again,
Thank you very
thank you all. Thank you all for coming. And thank you again, Anne Marie. And thank you to Lisa Johnstone. As usual, the captions were letter perfect. And so enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the Super Bowl tonight. Those who are watching, fly, Eagles, fly. And we'll see you all at the next time. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.